Hi, this is Jeff Arnette with the Arnette Report, a video business magazine that's designed to illustrate best practice examples about how local merchants and businesses are going about doing their marketing and advertising. I'm your host, Jeff Arnette, and tonight we've got a couple of interviews that I think you'll appreciate. Our first individual up here tonight is Alex Burns, who's with ECCIT Solutions, a guy who knows his stuff on that. And I'm going to ask him a little bit about Team Network, which is an interesting concept. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you, Jeff.
So tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and...
Oh, many years ago I used to live in England, but I've been here since the 1980s, so a long time. My entire career I've worked in IT, back from when it was called data processing and had big spinning tapes and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
For the last 10 years I've worked in systems engineering. I had my own company for a while. And then more recently, about a year ago, I joined ECCIT. They were doing some exciting things and wanted to try my hand at a little bit bigger company.
So now, what's the nature of their business?
It's called IT Managed Services, which basically means that lots of small companies have, well, all small companies virtually have computers.
Right.
They have networks. They need to be maintained if they're to run smoothly and allow people to operate the business. And what we do is we actively manage them so that those computers are running smoothly. We take care of the servers and the workstations, make sure that they're patched, make sure that they are protected by antivirus software. We put firewalls in front of the networks to make sure that they are protected in this age of cybersecurity attacks. Those are necessary.
There's a little bit of that going around, huh?
Oh, just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little scary. The latest thing is another encryption attack, which is a little bit more insidious than some of the previous ones, as they always are.
Wow. So there's a lot of folks out there that claim that they're able to do this effectively for businesses. How does your company go about differentiating themselves from other competitors?
There's a lot of companies out there that try and do everything remotely. And we think that the hands-on touch, where we go out and see our customers, not for everything, but periodically, is an important part of the service that we provide. Some people will kind of hold back the little things that are niggling at them until somebody shows up in person. And so that makes sure that small problems don't grow into bigger ones, and keeps us in tune with what's happening in the businesses that we support, so that we're better aligned to make sure that they have what they need when they need it.
Well, one of the things that I appreciate about companies like yours is that some of the smaller companies really can't afford to hire somebody full-time internally. And even if they do, that internal person has to be kept up to speed as to what the latest things that are going on in IT is all about, where your company has the ability to do that with your entire team. And so you can help people out more directly than if somebody actually tried to hire and train somebody else.
Yes. Well, first of all, we have a team of 8 people. No one technician can have as much knowledge as the combined knowledge of 8 different people.
Exactly.
Also, it means that if there is a peak demand, that one person may not be able to satisfy it, but by bringing a team of people in, we can. So those are a couple of ways in which I think that in some ways we're more effective than that in-house person for a smaller company.
And nowadays you got to spend $50,000–$60,000 to get somebody that's adequate.
I think that's an optimistic estimate. In Northern Virginia, I think that probably a salary of $60,000 to $70,000 for somebody who has got some basic knowledge, reasonable amount of knowledge, and then you've got to add all of the benefits that one has to pay and the taxes. So we can often support 3 or 4 clients with one technician. Sure. Obviously our prices reflect that.
So when you think about the clients for your business and you go out, and naturally there's going to be some of your existing clients that may share you with new prospects. But how else do you guys go about doing marketing?
It's funny you should ask, because one of the things that we found to be very effective is networking. We've done a lot of joining networking groups, where people gather once a week, once a month,
Right.
and they share information. And we found that while those are helpful, some are more helpful than others. And one of the difficulties is that many of those groups are focused on very small businesses who are primarily targeting consumers as their customers. So what we decided to do was to work with a gentleman named Kurt Kowalski, who runs an organization called Team Network.
Right.
Because he was open to the idea of forming a group that is exclusively business to business. So we met last fall, October, November time, at a networking meeting, not surprisingly. And we started our team networking group in Tysons a couple of months ago. And we went from 0 to 16, 17 members in a very short period of time. We meet twice a month.
Okay.
We have one meeting's a little bit more formal, where we explain how we can help each other. And the other is a little more informal, where we try and invite a lot of guests, and we just, have some hors d'oeuvres and some cocktails, and try and introduce people to one another to help promote their businesses.
That's an interesting concept, because I remember when I talked to Kurt last year, he had told me that he likes the introductions concept for people much more than writing down on a slip of paper somebody who might be interested in what you're doing, give this guy a call. And instead, he's saying that the way it works best is when someone is sort of pre-qualified, where I would talk to a friend of mine and say, are you really interested in IT? Here's an idea for IT solutions that might be able to help you and lower the cost of that help. And so to do pre-qualifying, are you interested in talking to him? And if they are, then provide an introduction for you. Otherwise, it's another cold call, and you're just calling somebody the same as if you looked their name up and,
And that's very helpful. The other things are that there are groups of people who may be targeting the same types of prospects. For example, in the Tysons group that I run on a day-to-day basis, we put together a group we've got a commercial realtor, we have an IT firm, our own, we have a company that does what they call multifunction printers today, but used to be known as photocopiers, a term that people might be a bit more familiar with, and accountant, a business coach, and consulting CFO. So we're trying to put together a group of people who can help a business grow, that can help a business that's establishing, that's maybe setting up new premises, by bringing a group of talent together, and we get to know and trust each other.
Yeah.
So we're comfortable making those referrals.
Well, and that's the whole thing. If I'm going to refer somebody to you, I need to know about your business, and can you be trusted, or what kind of work do you do, and to get a feel for that before I put one of my accepted clients in your hands. And that makes a great deal of sense.
Well, it seems to be working for us, so we have events a couple of times a month, and we try to keep them right in the Tysons area, in Reston.
So if somebody wants to find out more about who's in these groups and where do they, because they have some in Maryland also, right?
They do. In fact, Kurt's organization was really grown out of Maryland and is expanding into Virginia. We're kind of trying to lead the way with that.
So what's the best website for somebody?
It's fairly simple. It's teamnetwork.com, as you might imagine. So
pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward, and there's lists of the events that are available.
All right, so you got on that site, they can find out about events that are going on.
Exactly, where they're located, who to call.
Where the groups are and where they meet.
Exactly.
And then who's in those groups?
Yeah, the members can find out exactly who's in the groups. But for people who are guests, it's really a case of go to the group first.
So how would somebody who might be interested in growing their business and would like to look into Team Network for a couple of times to get a feel for what they're about, how would they go about getting invited?
Well, basically, there's usually there's a contact for every meeting. So if you go to the website, you say, well, I'd like to go to somewhere in Tyson, somewhere in Rockville. Pick a location, look through the available dates. There is a contact name of somebody you can call, along with their phone number, along with their email address. So start there.
And that doesn't cost anybody anything to come visit?
It doesn't cost anybody anything to come visit. There is a membership fee if you become a member. But that, you've got to take into account that most of these organizations have membership fees. Team Network's a little unique in that they're charged on a month-to-month basis. And if you find that the organization's no longer to your liking, you can discontinue at any time. Versus, you know, a several $100 a month.
Well, now, you mentioned other groups, and I know that there's one group that has something in $400 or $500 as a startup fee, and another $150 for something else, and then some training fees, and I mean, and then on top of that, you have to buy your own breakfast or lunch every week. So before it's over with, it could easily end up spending $1,800, $2,000 a year on something like this.
Absolutely. I was in one such group. I was spending about that amount of money. I was part of the leadership of the group, and because it was primarily business to consumer, I was really not getting very much business out of it.
Right.
So it was not very effective.
So a company that might be interested in checking this out could go to teamnetwork.com.
Teamnetwork.com.
And find a location they like on a day that they like and call up and get invited, and they can come in and check it out.
Absolutely.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming by tonight. And if you have any questions, we'll have that information at the end, Team Network and Alex's contact information. Now we're going to be right back in a minute with a young lady I met recently, Jacquelyn Otero, who is been in the service of our country and is now firing up a brand new business. We're going to find out more about that in just a minute. Thanks for tuning in. And welcome back to our final segment of the Arnette Report. And tonight, I'm very pleased to introduce Jacquelyn Otero. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you for inviting me, Jeff. Appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about Home Helpers.
Sure. Well, I just recently opened in Fairfax, so it is a franchise. It's a national brand, but it's owned regionally, which makes it extremely unique because it makes things a little more personal, especially for the community that you're serving. So we do non-medical care, but that includes companion care. So if people don't have any medical needs or anything particular that they need help with, just a companion to get them to place, we do that. But we also get into certified nursing assistant care as well.
And this is for people who need temporary help in the home and things like that.
It is essentially in the home, so it's trying to keep people where they feel most comfortable for recovery or for long-term care. So mostly in their homes.
Well, I've got a bunch of questions to ask you about that.
Tell me.
But first, you know what I want to do is find out a little bit about you personally, about where were you born and raised?
Well, I am part of the population that is so fondly known as Army brat. So I grew up all over the place, but home is California. That's where most of my family is. But we moved everywhere nationally, Germany, and finally settled in Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so we've been everywhere.
So, are you currently in like the National Guard or?
I am. I started off as an Army combat medic. in the Army Reserves, and I am now in the Air National Guard, so I'm an Air Force medic now, still in New Jersey, so my unit is there. I'm with pilots, so I'm their medic.
Oh, wow. That's got to be fun.
It is fun.
So you decided one day, gosh, I think I'll start a business. And how did you get into that
Not
discussion?
quite. I drove my mother a little more crazy than that. I did several things. I actually started off as a third grade teacher, believe it or not, I know. But I always had a love for the medical field. I always knew
Right.
that was something that I had a passion for, a drive for. And
You were one of those kids that put Band-Aids on their dog's paw, were you?
perhaps, maybe. So that's how I led into the Army. My father was an Army pilot, so that was something I knew well. And that's how I got into the medical field. And ironically, I teach now. So I also am an educator, and I teach medical skills to military medics. So I just kind of followed in the path that I started in a roundabout way. So.
Interesting. So you decided at some point that we're going to need a career after
Right.
service, and we appreciate your service to our country, by the way.
Thank you, Jeff.
And I think that there had to be some transition that happened there on how did you end up selecting home helpers?
It was kind of a natural fit. So especially since it is a community business, really, because you're serving people in the community, going to their homes. It's very personal. And you are educating people. So I am still in that personal care, that skills set of medical care that I love, but I'm also educating people at the same time, like what's the next step? What do I do now? That's usually the biggest question I get if someone's calling me for that kind of care. It's what do I do next? What are my options?
Well, that's a good segue into something I wanted to ask you about, and that is when you think of home health care, what are some of the reasons that people would call an organization like you? I mean, what type of situations do they find themselves in that would require mom or dad or someone to get help?
Sure. One of the most common things recently, because of the baby boom, people are getting older. A larger population has parents that may need extra care, but they also have children that they're trying to care for, and they very fondly call it sandwich generation phenomenon. It's people who are being pulled professionally and family. And
like adult children who
Right.
have mom or dad has got an issue and
Right.
you got to help.
Right, and there's a sense of obligation. Obviously, this is someone you love. This is your parent. So putting them, quote unquote, somewhere is unacceptable, which
Don't want a warehouse mom over there.
sure, yeah, and naturally there are other options. You know, there's a lot of emotion in this subject, and so having the proper support, at least the proper resources, is really what I'm trying to do in the Northern Virginia area.
So what type of services does a company like yours provide?
So we do the companion. So we drive if someone needs someone to go shopping with them or needs just a little extra company. But then we also provide short-term care, so people who just had knee surgery or even mothers who just had a baby take that for granted. They can't lift, there's a lot of recuperation that needs to be done post-operatively. But then also long-term care, so those who may have a degenerative condition, whether it's Alzheimer's or dementia or Parkinson's disease. So the key is to keep them in a place of comfort as long as possible and to recover if that is the case.
Well, now that's an interesting point, because it seems like that people could go into some of these homes, these places where they can essentially move in and they have constant daycare and somebody cooks for them, and they're like an apartment for seniors, and then they frequently have step-down units where if they need a little more help, they might have live over here and provide other services. So, but other people want to stay at home.
Absolutely.
They want, maybe they grew up or they spent the last 30 years in that house,
Right.
and they don't want to go anywhere. So you provide services where they can go in?
Right. Yes, and if you think about it too, those kind of living facilities where it's an apartment, most people hopefully psychologically are ready for that. You know, they're willing to move into places and they're ready to make that journey, so to speak. Other people are not. That's not the best move for them. The best move for them is to stay in that house where they have all those memories. It's where they prefer to, as they say, age in place. That's another common phrase.
Age in place.
Correct, yes. Yes, and it makes sense. I mean, I would probably want to do the same thing.
Right. So this leads into, this has got to be a pretty sensitive conversation with family members included. I mean, kids and mom, dad, or whoever is. Is this like a group decision normally?
We try to make it that way because it is a sensitive subject, and I always tell people, because sometimes we get called in for even hospice care, end of life care, to assist with that, and I always tell the family, you know, this is a sacred space that I'm entering into your home. I'm helping with your loved one at a very sensitive time, and rather than, I mean, this isn't a product, I'm not pitching something to you, this is a decision and a conversation that we have to walk through together. You know, I'm honored to be on that road with you. So that's really why I've gotten into what I've gotten into, because it is something that people need. It's usually a panic situation because things have happened very quickly, and I'm getting that phone call that says, you know, help.
Oh, you mean like mom fell or dad broke his leg or?
Right, or got extremely sick, and now we're faced with expenses, and you know, I need to go to work. What do I do next? So
you're able to have those kind of conversations with family members to determine what the best course of action is, or?
Yes, and rightly so. I've noticed that my biggest challenge is trust. People, obviously, because of the sensitivity of the subject and of the matter, people are a little skeptical. So again, the approach cannot be as though I was selling a product. That's not the business that I'm in. That's what I want to portray to people in the community. So that's how my outreach approach has been in this particular field.
So when you break into one of these kind of conversations, what are some of the typical concerns that people, when they first are faced with this issue, some of the concerns that they have that seem to form a pattern that you hear from other people? Sure.
Well, first, it's like I said, it's an emotional conversation. So they definitely want what's best. Another is what resources or what support do they have, whether it be monetary, whether it be just informational. I hear that as a large theme as well. So I find myself spending several hours with generally an adult child of somebody, kind of coaching them through what their options are financially and otherwise, and what's the best result for them, or the best
So when
decision.
you have conversations, and that naturally cost of services comes up.
Absolutely, sure.
But initially, that couple hours of conversation and your investigative abilities in questioning what's going on, and so that you thoroughly understand the situation with them. Do you charge for that?
No.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
the conversation or the consultation, even visiting their house and kind of seeing what their situation is, we obviously don't charge for that. That's not something that's the beginning of the conversation, and I hope that's a segue into them understanding that I'm in it for the right reasons, and their interest is my interest.
Well, trust is a big factor.
Sure.
So when you think about that, what would you feel like that you bring to the table, other than the fact that you've been serving our country and we should be able to trust you with that? But any other factors come in that help people make a decision to choose you?
Well, I think my years of experience, my empathy behind the approach, the sheer fact that I am indeed wanting the best for them, whether they use our services, maybe our services aren't the best for their situation. So I would like to convey that I want them to get to the right results as well. So That's the whole goal.
Yeah. So in terms of your services, the easiest way for people to get a hold of you is through your website?
Sure, yes, through the website. And as I mentioned, Home Helpers is a national brand. So even if...
So this isn't a spanky new company.
No,
You've got an
it's...
experienced organization behind you that's helping you with all
Yes.
these issues.
So it's kind of, we have the advantages of a large name, but we have also the advantages of a small personalized
Service, because you're
service.
local.
Absolutely, yes, which
Thank
works
you
to
so
everyone's
much
benefit.
for coming by tonight.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Maybe in a couple of months we can get you back in and you can fill us in a little bit more. And we'll wrap up this segment of the Arnette Report. Remember, it's on www.rctv28.com. It's a great way to find out about local businesses in your area. Thanks for stopping by tonight.